Warm welcome and greetings to all the learners of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. As a part of your course on managerial communication, which is semester 1, course 5, we shall be talking about communication, its meaning process, under which today's topic will be dwelling upon communication styles. Previously, we have seen what is the meaning of communication. We have spoken about what are the various types, how people communicate inside an organization, and how actually what are the various models through which communication happens. In today's session, we shall be talking about communication style. Actually, style is nothing but the way of describing different ways through which people communicate. So, it is basically a tendency of a person to communicate directly or communicate indirectly. Styles, people can combine different types of styles, or somebody can adopt a default style which a person may be having when they are trying to communicate. So, basically style will focus more on how the speaker is communicating rather than on what he is communicating. So, more is on the part of how communication happens rather than what actually is being spoken. So, style focuses more on how the speaker communicates the information within a conversation. See, every person may have their own preferred method of communication which may help people to effectively listen also. So, how we describe what we want to communicate and the tendency to communicate, we may use one particular style of communication or we may use different styles of communication. So, style basically is a way of communication, or it describes how a particular person wants to communicate with others. So, how is what is essential here, not what you want to communicate, but how is that communication is actually happening is what we talk about. Now, in the literature, there are so many authors who have given different styles of communications which can be there. One basic style when we speak about communication is a combination of something to do with task and ask. When a manager is communicating with the employees in a company, what is the task given and how is the manager asking for the completion of the task? Depending on that, you can have communication styles which can be of 4 types. So, we are trying to explore the relationship between task and ask. So, how are you asking and what is the task which is being done? So, the focus is on task and ask. Based on that, the communication style can be of 4 types. You can have communication which can be amiable. Amiable means something where it is very friendly, where the manager or the supervisor or the superior is communicating in a very friendly manner. Probably he may say that let's meet to discuss this. So, when he says let's meet to discuss this, it's a very friendly approach of approaching the subordinates or the employees in the company and asking them to complete a particular task. So, that is called as an amiable style of communication. One more style can be expressive, where you are talking about telling the employee that let me tell you my ideas and then seeking feedback from the employee. So, you are basically trying to say let me tell you my idea about this. So, it is a very expressive style of communication which can be there. Or communication can also be something where the style is very analytic, where you are trying to say that let me think about this, where if a subordinate has given some opinion, then you will say that let me think about this. Or you can also have a driver centric approach where the speaker can say that let's take action on this. So, actually task driven, the relationship is there. So, that way one way of telling how people are communicating is depending on what kind of a relationship is there between task and ask, where you are saying whether the speaker is amiable or expressive, analytic, or he is kind of a driver in terms of communication. Now, in the literature which is related to managerial communication, you have authors like Waldher and Muck who spoke about styles of communication by taking into consideration 2 dimensions. They spoke about 2 dimensions, assertiveness and responsiveness. whether the person who is speaking in a very assertive tone, so high assertiveness, low assertiveness. Based on that, you would have high responsiveness or low responsiveness of the employee. So there you talk about, the styles of communication, which can be something called as 4 ways: private, sociable, dominant, open, depending upon whether they are high or low on assertiveness and responsiveness. This was the research which was being done by Wilder and Muck. So in the year 2011, they spoke about these 2 dimensions in relation to communication style, where they say high or low on assertiveness and responsiveness, and whether a speaker is high on assertiveness and high on responsiveness, or low on assertiveness and low on responsiveness. Based on that, you have 4 styles of communication: private, sociable, dominant, and open. When you talk about communication where the speaker is adopting a style which is private, the feedback and the disclosure will be very low. So low disclosure, low feedback is private communication or private style of communication. On the other hand, if the feedback is high but disclosure is low, then you say it is a sociable style. So low disclosure, high feedback. Similarly, when disclosure is very high but feedback is low, it means that the speaker is very assertive but the responsiveness is low, where the speaker has played a very dominant style of speaking. Or if both the assertiveness and feedback, if both are very high, then the communication style is said to be an open style of communication which can be there. This is one way of describing the 4 styles in the literature given by Wilder and Muck, where they speak about, depending on whether the speaker is high on assertiveness and disclosure or high or low on responsiveness, you can have private, sociable, dominant, or open form of communication. That is one way of describing the styles. Another way of describing the styles is based upon another 4 dominant factors which are called as DICS: dominance, influence, conscientiousness, and steadiness. These 4 dimensions you would take and then have your communication style, which can be described as dominant, influential, conscientious, or steadfast or steadiness. The first one is dominance. In a dominant style of communication, the speaker is very firm, strong worded, very forceful, result oriented, and very direct. So you basically talk about, managers in the company who may be having a strict leadership style where they adopt a very dominant communication style. They can be direct, they can be result oriented, they are very firm on what they want to communicate, and they are also very strong willed. That means whatever is being communicated, they want that work to be done, and they are also very forceful in terms of communication. This is one style. Second style is influential, where you say that the communicator is very enthusiastic, he is highly spirited, very lively, very optimistic, motivational type of communication which can be there, where you want to influence the other person. We basically have lot of motivational speakers who have to adopt influential type of communication, where they are very outgoing, enthusiastic, lively, charismatic, and they have highly spirited type of communication which they have, which is called as influence. Third type of style is one where you say steadiness, where you say that the communicator is very patient, very humble, tactfully listens, tries to accommodate whatever the listeners are also trying to say, and he is also even tempered, not highly spirited, neither very harsh or very strong, but even tempered kind of a style where you are trying to accommodate what the listener also is trying to tell. Very patient, humble, and tactful kind of a communication. Usually you would have benevolent leaders in a company who actually communicate with people in a very soft tone in the organization. So you call them as steadiness or the steadfast type of a communication style. You can also have a communication style which can be conscientious, where you talk about style which is very precise. You communicate to the point, very systematic type of a communication, don't speak too many words, but it's strictly restricted to whatever actually has to be spoken, very analytical, and the person who is speaking is also having a reserved personality as such. So you call it the person is very conscious of what the person is trying to tell and speak. So you say that also as a conscientious style of communication. So this is one way of expressing communication. The first way where we spoke about how people express was depending on task and ask, where we spoke about amiable, expressive, analytic, and driver kind of a style, where you are trying to explore the relationship between task and ask. The second type of style which we discussed was given by in the literature by Walder and Muck, where high or low on assertiveness or high or low on responsiveness, where whether how you are disclosing, how feedback is coming, based on that communicator style is private, sociable, dominant, or open. Current style which we are discussing is DICS, where we say the speaker is adopting a style which is dominant, influential, or conscientious, or steadiness type of a style, where we say, he is speaking very directly, result oriented, firm, strong, forceful, then he is adopting a dominant style. If he is speaking very enthusiastically, lively, optimistic, and outgoing, highly spirited person style, then it is influence style. If the speech is very patient, humble, tactful, trying to accommodate the listener also, then he is a very steadiness kind of a style which he is adopting. On the other hand, if the speaker is adopting a style which is very analytical, reserved, private, precise, and systematic, to the point, then it is called as conscientiousness style of speaking. This is also one way of describing your communication styles. Another way of describing styles of communication is one where you would say that the communicator is actually acting as a director, as an expressor, as a thinker, or as a harmonizer. These are all on a matrix of 4, where you talk about whether you are speaking as a director. That means you are goal oriented, you are making decisions very quickly, speak very crisply, and also you are insensitive when you are trying to speak. That is, top bosses usually adopt this kind of a style which can be there. Or you can also adopt a style where you are an expressor. That is, you are people oriented, your style of communication is very animated, it excites people, there is entertainment in the communication, you may be very imprecise also, there can be talk which can be out of the box, unconventional, where you are trying to express things. So the style that you have is an expressor style. Or the style can also be something called as a thinker style, where you are talking about task oriented. You think, make a list, speak by according to that list, and speak very deliberately, believe that that is the right way or a wrong way of speaking which can be there. So it's a thinker style of speaking which can be there. Or your speech can also be adopted in the form of a harmonizing type of a style, where you talk about the style is something where you focus more on relationship, sensitive to others, dedicated, speak very softly, want to avoid all kinds of conflicts which you are speaking. These are all one way, all the characteristics of a speaker who can be a harmonizer. So that way you can have a speaker whose style can be a director style, where you are goal oriented, quick decision maker, speak very crisply. Or you can be an expressor style, where you talk about entertaining people, thinking very loud, speaking imprecisely and in an animated manner. Or you can be speaking like a thinker, where you make a list, speak according to that list, very task oriented, very deliberate way of speaking. You can speak in terms of a harmonizer, where you talk about speaking, keeping in mind all kinds of relationship orientedness, sensitivity to others, speak very softly, which can be there. Depending on what kind of an approach you have, the response also will be similar. For example, if the style is such that of a director, where you talk about not adverse to conflict and all, people initially respond, then later they may try to negotiate and all. Similarly, if you are an expressor, then people initially try to respond by looking and searching for solution. Later there could be negative responses in terms of criticizing the behavior and the attitude of the speaker which can be there. So that way you can have different thing. One more style of describing styles of communication of a speaker can be in terms of, how the speaker is speaking, which is given by Richmond and McCarthy. These two authors have spoken about, the managerial communication in terms of tell and sell. They say managers who are actually trying to provide a top-down approach of speaking, non-interactive, no concern for subordinates, where you are following a unidirectional form of communication is a style where you are saying tell. That means the speaker's focus is only on telling to whoever are the subordinates who are in the company. Usually all the formal communication which happens in an organization is in this way, where you talk about tell, that is manager is basically providing top down directions, instructions, non-interactive method of speaking with the employees who are there in the company, primarily unidirectional kind of an approach which can be followed. Or the manager can go for a sell style, where managers are making decision by persuading the subordinates to accept the decision. Any questions which may be coming from the subordinates, all that will be encouraged. Any kind of a counter argument which can come during the process of decisions, that is also being encouraged. So exclusively it is downwards. Sometimes it can be bi-directional, where even the subordinates are also given a chance to speak. So that style will be called as a sell style. So you can have a tell style or a sell style in the form of communication. These two styles were being told by authors Richmond and McCarthy in the literature. These are all different authors who have presented different styles of communication. Now coming to the basic styles which are adopted in a company as such, that is the prominent communication styles which can be there, are actually given by different authors. The first one is aggressive, passive, assertive. This was given in the year 1997 by an author by name Newbold. Newbold speaks about three styles of communication which a manager can adopt in a company, which is called as aggressive, passive or assertive. One more author by name Sultano in 2013 focused on manipulative style of communication. Then there was Beiser, who discussed in the year 2020, who speaks about combination, that is passive aggressive together, passive as well as aggressive together as one style. Then one more author called Arredondo in the year 2003 focused on assertive style of communication. Nevertheless, all these styles which are given by different authors on different years, they can be prominently put into four major styles of communication supported by a combination which is one more called as the fifth one. The first one under this is passive style. Actually, passive style of communication is one where the managers avoid expressing their feelings, expressing their needs. In this style of communication, the managers are not supporting the employee needs as well. You are basically communicating the message in a very straight manner, which can also cause irritation or delay from the receiver's end as such, whereby you are trying to limit your thought process and ideas and simply convey the message very bluntly to the employees in the organization. So this is one style which is called as a passive style of communication in an organization. Second is aggressive style. In case the manager is also expressing the feeling and the opinion and also recommending the feelings and the opinion as a need or as a way of violation of their rights of the employee, then it is called as an aggressive style. Aggressive managers basically are more focused on results rather than relationship. They don't give much importance to relationship, but more importance is being given for results. That is called as an aggressive style. So managers here are communicating by adopting a very controlling mechanism, demanding mechanism from the side of the employee. Such a style, if a manager or a speaker is adopting, where they want to control and demand and focus more on results, then it is called as aggressive style of communication. For example, a production manager may come and tell all the production floor employees that by the end of today I want 10 units to be produced. Now that is result oriented, where you are not concerned about how the employee is feeling or what kind of a physical tiredness they are experiencing, but you want the output of 10 units to be done. This is called as an aggressive style of communication which can be there. Style can also be manipulative, where you're actually adopting a very calculative behavior in order to assess what can be the outcome of your communication. So manipulative style is one where the managers are demonstrating astute and they are calculating behavior to achieve the outcome. Basically, they have a very strong influencing style. They control others for their own advantage. So when I'm trying to hide underlying message of my communication and I want the other person to be completely unaware of what is my intention, when I communicate something by hiding or by trying to not reveal everything to the other person so that I get the work done from the other person, that is a manipulative type of a communication style. Managers with manipulative style are out for their own personal gain. They motivate very skillfully others in the organization. They influence the others' behavior so that they can get benefit for their own selfish ends which can be there. That is called as a manipulative style of communication which can be there. This is not wrong as such because you are trying to influence to get the work done which can be there in a company, manipulative style. You can also have a combination of this style which is called passive aggressive, which was basically given by Beiser, who said passive aggressive is one where the managers are controlling the emotions and the behaviors of the other employee and manipulate them as they think or wish in many indirect ways which can be there. You can have, for example, an indirect passive aggressive behavior by a manager is when he or she is losing their calmness, becoming angry, becoming hostile and punishing the employee who can be there in the company. The managers here are often, resentful, or they are motivated to undermine the contributions which are made by the employee, or sometimes they even end up negatively affecting the employee's visibility in the company. So passive communication style, but it is also combined with aggression which can be there in the organization. So you can have passive aggressive style. Then one style can also be called as assertive communication style, which happens when the manager is respecting the needs of the employee. You are assessing what is it that the employee is needing, how is the employee feeling, what kind of a confidence or the skills you have in order to influence the behavior of the employee. You are trying to eliminate all kinds of ambiguity and misunderstanding from the minds of the employees when you are trying to communicate. That kind of a style is something which is called as assertive style. Assertive is one of the most influential styles of communication which can be adopted, where you can actually establish even social relations with the employee. You can have a very amicable kind of a work atmosphere when you adopt an amicable style of communication which can be there, which is called as assertive style, where manager is also not only communicating but respecting the needs of the employee, assessing their mental process and then trying to communicate, gain their confidence, avoid misunderstandings and ambiguities which are there, and then trying to do communication, which is your assertive style of communication. Then a combination of one more is your submissive style. Submissive style is one where the people who are on the receiving end are feeling happy, encouraged, they are also feeling that they are involved in the entire process of communication which can be there, where actually whoever is the communicator is very cooperative, cheerful, amicable, lively when the person is trying to communicate with the other people. So in the literature of managerial communication, you see that there are many authors who have given different styles of communication, right from styles which are given by Walder and Muck, to styles which are given by people like Richmond and McCarthy, and then the prominent styles which are given by Newbold and Sultano and Beiser and Arendado, who are there. Most prominent styles which are there are to do with styles which are passive style, where there is no expression of needs and feelings by the manager, or you can have an aggressive style where they are expressing their feelings and opinions and recommending that their needs are being fulfilled. You can have a style which is manipulative, where the manager is demonstrating astute and employing calculative behavior so that outcome can be achieved. Or you can have a combination of this, which is called passive aggressive style, where you talk about managers controlling the employee emotions, behaviors, and then manipulating so as to get the work which can be done. or it can also be assertive, where you are trying to understand what is the mental process of the employee, how are you assessing the need of that particular employee, what kind of skills the employee has got, confidence, so that you are avoiding the misunderstanding and ambiguity which the employees may be having when you are trying to communicate. So what basically happens is, when you want the entire process of communication to be successful, you have to be very careful in understanding what style of communication actually is being followed by a manager. There are instances where you have workplace misunderstandings which happen, or you would have conflicts which can happen only because the style which was being adopted by the manager was a wrong style, where the employees could not get the message across what the manager wanted to communicate, because the style which the manager adopted was wrong. When the employees are very amicable, social relations are upheld at workplace, if you adopt a style which is very aggressive or manipulative, that will not be encouraged by the employee. On the other hand, when you have a very strict kind of a flow, very formal setup, and then you do not have much scope for social relations in an organization, but if you are adopting a very assertive style, that also will not be very successful in the organization. So depending upon what kind of a work atmosphere you have, structure of a company which is being followed, number of employees who are there in the company, all kinds of personality traits which the manager and the speaker is having, based on that also different types of communication styles can be adopted. More predominantly, you would have communication styles which are also described based on how you are asserting and what kind of responsiveness are you seeking from the people, whether you are goal oriented or whether you are people oriented, whether you are task oriented or whether you are relationship oriented. Also depends upon whether you are responding initially, whether you are responding later, or depends upon whether the manager is adopting a tell style or a stealth style of communication. Also depends upon whether you are very amiable in the organization, very expressive in the company. So basic understanding that you say that it is basically telling you how you are describing the different ways of describing people, tendencies of how people communicate directly or indirectly, where a person can be having one single style of communication which can be there, or he may be adopting more than one style of communication when he is trying to communicate. So in today's session, which was dwelling upon communication styles, we spoke about different styles of communication, where we were talking about styles which can be based upon different combinations which can be there. Whether the manager or the speaker is concentrating on task, then you can have a style which can be very analytic. If the manager is concentrating on upholding relationship in the workplace, then your style of communication will be very amiable and expressive. If the manager is high on assertiveness, high on responsiveness, then you can have an open style of communication. If the speaker is somebody who is very low on assertiveness, low on feedback, then you can have a very private type of a style of communication which can be there. Similarly, if the person who is speaking is very lively, enthusiastic, optimistic, highly spirited, then you can have is very influential style which can be there. Or if the person is having a personality where he is speaking directly, firmly, strongly worded, very forceful type of a communication, then it is a very dominant style of communication. So therefore, depending upon what type of orientation is there towards people, what type of an orientation is there towards result, what type of an orientation is there towards the tasks which are supposed to be done in the company, you can have different types of communication styles which can be adopted. Also to keep in mind is, what is the structure, nature of the company, what type of a formal or informal setup are you working in, how many hierarchical levels do you have, what kind of a work pressure is there, do you have deadlines and timelines to complete your work. Based on that, the employees can have, the managers and employees can have aggressive style, passive style, assertive style. Managers can also have manipulative style, where they are trying to influence and manipulate so that the work can be done very easily. So that way, prominent communication styles are those where you talk about style which can be passive, style which can be aggressive, style which is manipulative, or style which can be a combination of passive aggressive or finally you have a positive way of communicating, which can be an assertive, where you are actually communicating not only the message but also understanding through feelings and needs and the mental process of the other person, as well as assessing in order to understand in what situation the entire communication is happening. So that way, in today's session we have spoken about various styles of communication depending upon various factors which can be there, whether you are concentrating on result, whether you are concentrating on relationship, whether you are concentrating to manipulate the behavior of the other person, whether the concentration is based upon personality trait of the person who is communicating. Any style of communication can be adopted. More predominantly in a company, you can have person adopting one style or combinations of style depending upon the situation and depending upon the work which is to be done. That was related to various communication styles, which is an essential part of managerial communication. Thank you so much.